So they asked us to do our top 5 favorite strikers to watch. Now, let's be clear about this. This is not 5 best all-time. This is not our 5 best even right now. Listen to the way we are describing it. These are our top 5 favorite, just who we like for the reasons that we like them. Now, BC, a couple questions for you. One, do you want to go in order, like 5-5, 4-4, 3-3, 2? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to say about mine, BC. I picked these, yes, based on a little bit of ability, obviously, but I wanted to find fighters who, predominantly do their best work in this field, as opposed to, ground and pound artists. And here's my way of which I selected them. Which ones bring me the most joy? Which ones, when I see their fights come up, I get the spidey sense about who I want to go see?
Same thing I did, Luke. Same thing I did, by the way, okay? And I think this is the debut of a new segment we have called Cinco de MK. That's not, I didn't do it
Only
wrong,
if you
right?
did, it would be Cinco de MK. That's how it would be.
Okay. I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody's peoples, Luke, but Cinco de MK is going to be a killer segment moving forward, I'm telling you. Okay?
Cinco de MK. Okay, so how about this? You go first, I'll go second. Who is your top 5, number 5, favorite striker to watch, BC?
Yeah, long time watching her, first time screaming about it. How about a legend to me and sort of my favorite fighters? He's been with Bellator a long time, and he's been knocking fools the hell out. Andrey Spartan Koreshkov, I believe multiple-time Bellator welterweight champion, had injuries in recent years, has only consistently lost to the very best. But why do I enjoy watching him fight so much? Because he is savage as shit. And it took a long time for him to round out his game in his original fights. Watch the title loss to Ben Askren. He was raw in many categories. But he throws everything into every strike. And he's technical enough that he's not some caveman. But it is I don't know if I feel like I'm watching a street fight sometimes when he explodes. When he lands the type of shots that he patiently sets up, these shots end fights. And he's tough as nails, and he's been in some very good fights that I'm not even sure everyone's seen against some very good names. If Spartan's going to be back around, that's how it used to be as a fan and journalist for me. Oh, Koreshkov's on this shit, I'm watching it. I was there when he won back the title at the Mohegan Sun, and it was a fun moment there. Was that Benson Henderson I'm thinking of that fight?
Yeah, he beat the shit out of him.
This is not technical, city kickboxing here, Luke. But this is a guy who smashes, he makes fun fights, and I've always had a specific love for how he sets up these fight-ending smashes. He's a smart dude, but he leans heavily into the violent side of him to get the job done.
Yeah, I like that pick. That's a good one. For me, though, I'm going to go a bit of a different direction. For me, I'm going to go for my number 5 pick. I'm going to go Rafael Fiziev. He is a guy that when I see his name come up in matchmaking, I get that spidey sense that this is the one to watch. I like his acrobatic defense where he does the lean back, the matrix type stuff. That's obviously fun and flashy. But BC, the reason why I like him is because he's got a hard-nosed striking style, right? He can fight you at kickboxing range, and he's devastating there. But, dude, he can be hit a little bit. He'll fight in boxing range and mix it up, but he's devastating there, too, obviously with the win over RDA and the way that he got it. He is poised for something special, and he's the best of both worlds. He's got the technical pedigree when he needs it, and he's got the hard-nosed attitude when it's time to deliver. Plus, at this stage in his career anyway, he likes to entertain, it seems like, a little bit. He likes to give something back to the fans. So for me, I'm always going to side with people that got that slickness. That's, to me, the most important thing. But you sprinkle on top the acrobatic matrix shit as well as just the biting down on the mouthpiece at times. He's a fun guy. He's a fun, talented striker to watch. He's my number 5 pick.
He's one of those guys where he's so explosive that I'm not really sure how great he can be. Like, he's going to be in big fights, I'm sure. But I'm convinced that he can do anything at any time. He's one of those guys. Like prime Anthony Pettis, right? Can do anything at any time, and this fight could be over. I get that feeling watching him, so I like that pick, Luke.
All right, who's your number 4?
All right, my number 4, look, this is like a hardcore pick. It might surprise you, but how about some love for D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez, Luke? Wow. You know this guy. You know this guy, right?
He's great. I like him.
He is, he happens to be pretty damn good and is climbing on a nice run at the moment. He must be injured or something. He's been out for a while, but when I see him on the card, it is must-see TV. So why? First of all, does he have a badass side to him? Absolutely. He could take a big punch. Sometimes he takes too many big punches, but then rallies back. And it's not that, though, necessarily. It's not even the sort of like Nate Diaz-y swagger that he carries, but it is the whole package. He's got an aggressive tattoo set, and he carries himself while still being a very interesting and tough to figure out striker in almost a street fight schoolyard swagger to him. I mean, you can confuse it with Stockton there, Luke, but he's got his own rhythm to it. And when he gets in the midst of a fight, which he often pretty much is, he goes for it. The craft that he shows from a swagger stance of his hands off and dropped, it always surprises me. He has an ability to get off shots at very good angles and make them heavy and make them count. I love his combinations. I love when he's in a fight and he's going downhill and he knows he's taking the momentum and the control. His ability to pick guys apart, it doesn't look like he's going to have that craft, but he also adds some very interesting footwork combination, natural boxing entrances and exits that I think there's a lot more to his game than people realize when you see the blood and guts and the tattoo. And I mean, he's willing to make those fights, but there's something intriguing about his southpaw boxing style and how he's adapted to the game without compromising from that swagger that makes him fun to watch. That he's good. He may win some fights that you don't think, Luke. He can fight, this guy.
He's a problem solver. That's what you want out of these guys. You want guys to take some risks, no doubt about it, but you want them to figure things out. Excuse me. I would say that Rodriguez does that and more. Like, people look at him with the tattoos and they think, oh, brawler. Well, that's not really fair, is it? He's a guy, yeah, he'll mix it up with you. Okay, it's not like he's afraid of contact, but to me, if this is a perfect case of don't judge a book by its cover, depending on your, me, I'm not against the tattoos, but I know a lot of people kind of see that and think you must be one kind of fighter. That's not really fair with Daniel Rodriguez. He can do a lot. I like him, and he's fun, and he gets shit done. He figures opponents out, and then really kind of is malicious in a good way. Towards the end.
He's so good technically that it's almost like you want to tell him to dial down the edge, but the edge is what allows him to take chances and win big fights. Right. I mean, he's fun in that way. Yeah.
All right, for number 4 for me, now he's had some troubles, although he's got a big fight coming up against Song Yadong. I'm going to go Cory Sandhagen. I love watching Cory Sandhagen go at it. And he's got his own style, man. He's switching stances all different kinds of ways. He's hitting you from angles, and it's this punch, and he's exiting, and it's back at this angle. And I still think he hasn't fully figured out how he wants to fight or fully apply it. And again, you've seen him come up short, against TJ Dillashaw, against Jan, against other guys. But in terms of like the different fun ways, the new wave, so to speak, especially in that bantamweight division, but more generally among the next vanguard of strikers, who do I put at that next vanguard of strikers? Well, there's several guys, but one of them would be Cory Sandhagen. Cory Sandhagen goes out there and does really interesting, constant motion, constant trickery, constant deception. And when he's, in his element and doing the things that he wants to do, he's a joy to watch. I think we'll have to see about the other parts of his game. Has he got as well-rounded as he needs to be? Does he consistently apply it as much as he needs to? All the things that have kind of held him back. But I love watching this guy strike, and I think, as I mentioned, part of that future you see leading the way in which MMA striking is headed.
Very well said. To be honest, him and Cheyenne Vlismas just barely missed the cut of my top 5, Luke, and I love the innovation, the thought process behind it, how dangerous he's been able to land single strikes, which certainly allows him more control of the terms. And once he's got you in his web, he is fun to watch him pick guys apart with shots that they wouldn't necessarily expect in that moment. It's tough to see him at the current run right now because you know how much he puts into these big fights and how close he's gotten to have, almost like we were talking about Dan Hooker, a fighter that is of that ilk, but in the biggest moments I've had more losses than wins of late. But I think there's still time for this guy to put it all together. It's the right fight at the right time, the right moment. He's been close to delivering those moments, Luke, and it's the striking that's so fun. I mean, he's a wizard on the ground too and can get fights from on the feet to the ground in no time, but it's the way he sets up those creative strikes. It's exotic, Luke. I like it, all right?
It certainly is. All right, who's your third pick?
A classic here, and it's hard not to have this guy because I like guys that jump through the screen that they can finish a fight anytime, and that is the Brazilian legend, yes, Edson Barbosa, who has such a variety of just vicious knockout performances of different varieties of ultimate Terry Edom, spinning spectacular, but just also other gritty ones. And then on the flip side, because he has such a badass and in 2 divisions has always matched himself as difficult as possible. He has spectacular losses, but he has the respect and reputation. He didn't just become this highlight reel guy. Like he's as gritty and tough. I mean, the beating he took against Khabib to prove that he could, he wins a lot of points in those categories. But if you're asking me outside of the moments he's created and the fact that he brings an edge to watching a fight, knowing that it could go, wild at any time, is for a guy that violent in the way the results are, there's a almost jazz-like smoothness to how he enters into the spinning back kicks and the other, creative setups, and he's a threat with his hands too. But it's almost like I was just watching on the Showtime app, good plug for your 30 days free at Showtime.com, the NYC Point Guards documentary on New York City point guards. And, they rightfully, really put up like Mark Jackson, Rod Strickland, Kenny Anderson for not only being great and representatives of the city, but with that swagger where, you watch the old Rod Strickland highlights and Rafer Alston too, Skip to My Lou, and it's like they're dancing through it. Dude, Barbosa is as beautiful to watch. Like baseball, Darryl Strawberry's swing. We used to always say, it's just so beautiful. Ken Griffey Jr., so beautiful to watch. Edson's the best example of being like as violent and devastating, a dream fighter for a fan to watch. And then also being graceful. And I told you the story, Luke, I'll say it again, of being at ATT in South Florida for interviews with CBS and just hearing the most outrageously loud and obnoxious sound of thwack, thwack. And it was so damn loud you thought they were beating animals outside. And no, it's Edson Barbosa lightly warming up and doing spin kicks against the pads. And I know that any pro fighter, if you stood next to him while he did that, you'd get a little intimidated. Holy shit, it was like watching an alien just sprout 6 arms, Luke. This guy, I love him. I love that man. And
he's got some of the best highlight reel finishes literally in UFC history. Like, for example, that knee, the vertical knee he hit on Beneil Dariush. One shot put him out. How about the leg kicks on Rafael Tractor Oliveira? How about the beatdown of was it Mike Lulo or whoever the fuck he fought in his promotional debut? Like Terry Edom, where he turned him into a mannequin. Yeah. Dude, he has some of the most incredible finishes any UFC fighter will ever have. And dude, they had, eventually he got beat on the feet a little bit, but dude, for the vast majority of his losses, it's because dudes were trying to take him down consistently because they didn't want any fucking part of that dynamite, and who could blame them,
And this is about favorite strikers, and he could be in anyone's top 5, but he's also got a backbone on him that I just always, you're going to respect that to the end, Luke. You're just going to, damn, he's willing. Luke, he's always
his
willing.
Resume, the RDA, the Stevenses, the Bob Lawlers. Check out Barbosa's resume. There ain't a fucking ounce of fat on it, man. Nothing but hammers the whole way through. All right, for my number 3, BC, it's going to be a pretty easy one. I interviewed him on the show here before the break a couple months before. Adrian Yanez. I want to see how they put up the graphic, too, by the way. Let's see how they did it. Okay, I'm going to ask a favor. I know it wasn't intentional, but I want to ask the graphics people a favor going forward. You got to put a squiggle over the N. It's an Enye, and he has, anglicized his name to accommodate everyone else. Let's make sure we accommodate him and get the Enye over that. It's Adrian Yanez. But, BC, how do you not like this kid? It's 2 reasons why I like him. One, I like that he has this sort of boxing-centered game, and when I interviewed him, it talked to him about boxing. He loves it, and he's incorporating all these different elements, and he's trying, and he's theorizing, and it's working, and his understanding of the game, given some of those precepts, is really remarkable. So I'm excited about what he's already shown, which is dramatic, and not just boxing, by the way, kickboxing too, with that. But I'm excited about where he can go. I'm excited about what he and other people like him represent for that future. A guy who can take boxing sensibilities, bring it to an MMA game, build out more than just that, obviously, as he has, and then still be young enough to be like, wow, where's he going to look? What's he going to look like? So, in 2-3 years when he's really entering his prime. I think he's going to be as exciting as he is. I think he's going to be even more exciting. I love watching him. And if you haven't seen the interview, if you like the kind of interviews where fighters allow you to pick their brains and are candid about the things that they see and talk strategy and talk shop, you got to listen to this kid. He's phenomenal. My pick, Adrian Yanez.
A great summation, Luke, of the next generation that's growing. It's like you always ask that good question about boxing, seeing more attempts at switch hitting of both stances and doing it in a flow almost than ever before. It's like this next generation in MMA are starting to just kind of like when, after GSP, suddenly everyone's training from day one to be a complete mixed martial artist. You're watching it happen, but he's also kind of a badass, Luke, and he watches Morning Kombat. So Adrian Yanez with the creativity, his love of the box, like myself, Luke, right? And boxing. I got to like this guy.
All right. Who's your second pick?
My number 2, Luke, it may not surprise you because she's my favorite fighter to watch consistently. But how about Rose Namajunas, and how about her striking game cerebrally? And obviously, this is one of the prime reasons why Trevor Whitman has deserved so much recognition, Coach of the Year last year. And I know, this is how the game works. It just so happens that his 3 big fighters all lost in title fights, and it wasn't, necessarily impressive or inspiring. And that's the truth. But that happens in this game. What Rose has done with Trevor, from obviously her debut with Tough with the UFC to losing the inaugural title fight, it's beautiful to watch. Talk about watching Barbosa where it's so violent, but it's also so like there's so much elegance to it. Rose is like that to a certain degree, only she also can end the fight at any time with one strike. And you think of her in the first Joanna fight just surprising you with setting up that hook, and you think certainly of the head kick against Wei Li. I mean, at the absolute highest level and the most tense and poised moment, she can go from cerebral and a technician to an assassin. And that's why it's so fun, because she was more of a submission threat when she first came on as, this next Ronda Rousey, in some degree, as the marketing push was. And do I love her intangibles and her story and how she lives it all public on her sleeve? Yeah, of course. That's what makes her so must see. But I think it's fueled by this evolution as a striker where I don't think a lot of people, male or female, have a brain like that. And that's why Trevor seemed to be the perfect coach at the perfect time and what they've built together. I think, on the women's side, that's helped evolve striking in a huge way. Her coming to prominence in the work they've done together, because she's as good as it gets, Luke, on any given night. There's no question about it.
So what do you make of what went wrong against Carla?
Hearing that extended interview with Pat Barry afterwards, I believe it was with Ariel, and I think it's kind of been like this recurring theme where Rose is very honest about her mental health journey, and like I said, wears everything on her sleeve, and lost in a crazy a way against Andrade, her title, and then found a way to come back and keeps having these big moments. I don't think it's that old narrative of uncomfortability with the belt, but I think, as Pat talked about, there was a specific thing that Rose was looking to do to neutralize Carla, and she did that. And maybe not unlike what we were talking about with Aldo against Merab, but different. There was almost a contentment with that and not enough onus to go for it. And she's had some of the most fun career to watch because it's been so up and down and you can relate to it so much. But there's a lot of we're at this level and then we're here, but then we're back at that level. And I think that's sort of who she is. And Pat's talking about, it just so happens that there's this system, if you look over her wins and losses of order of a certain amount of wins and then a loss. And it's weird that it's that consistent and up and down. But damn, when she's the very best, she is the fucking very best. Pat's right. And a lot of that is how she's evolved as a striker. But she gave away that fight. And, we'll probably see her rally back and win back the belt, knowing her, Luke, and it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, what can you speak to her striking evolution? It's been brilliant.
It's been super brilliant. The footwork is a big one. The footwork and the flow and the positioning was good. She had an off performance in the last one, which tends to happen at times. I mean, no one can be on every time. I think in the third fight, if they have another one, it wouldn't look that way. But in general, I think her body of work and what it's shown is how devastating she can be, and how, to your point, it is almost like a dance in there with the way she's balanced and shifting and moving. It's kind of like just beautiful to watch, just the movement itself. But the fact that it's so devastating usually is a testament to just the level of skill that she occupies. I
remember the first round of the first Andrade fight. She looked like $1 million. Remember that?
Yeah. She really did. All right. So my number 2, if I may here, BC, I don't know how people exactly view him in totality. He is more than this, but we're talking about as a striker, how do we view him? I'm going to go number 2, Alexander Volkanovski. I am so blown away by what he has done and change the game. He beat Max Holloway 3 times, basically just striking with him. And I know some of those are controversial, but the last one was not, and it was really just that the whole time. The way in which he talked to me about how he scrambles people's brains, I think this is beyond next level. And I don't think a lot of folks still understand or fully appreciate the level that he's on. They're waiting for some kind of devastating knockout. But the reality is he can take his style, as he's mentioned, apply it across a wide spectrum of opponents. That's the first thing. And then more than that, he's got world-class opponents profoundly confused about whether he's coming or going, high or low, left or right, exiting or entering. And it is a magisterial thing to watch. I get so excited to watch him compete, and because I learn new things, I get to see the future of the fight game in the present. That's a big thing that you'll hear me repeat with a lot of these choices. And Volkanovski, to me, is at the very, very, very front of the pack. By the way, moved to number 1 on the pound-for-pound list by virtue of Usman's loss. And I think that's fair. I think he is the most talented fighter in the game right now, as more than just a striker, but as a striker. He is not completely unique, but the total package of what he presents and the basic quandary that his opponents find themselves in is, to me, without parallel, basically. I love watching this guy compete.
Look, we were waiting for you to sprout a city kicking boner on this top 5. I mean, we were just waiting. And you know what? I got it dead wrong myself. I've been calling Usman the pound-for-pound king throughout the build-up to the Edwards fight, during and after. And, he was still UFC's. Look, I had on my CBS Sports, for whatever that's worth, had made him the number 1 after doing what he did to Holloway in the 3rd fight. And he was already a wizard and worthy of this countdown, especially if you preferred watching that type of mastery. I don't look at him as much as I look at like Rose, as she's like playing jazz out there. He's like somebody who's playing one of those like whack-a-mole games and is just on top of everything and can make people like a puppet do what they don't want to do. And now he's adding more intentionality to finishing and looking to set up to do damage. Yeah, dude, striking wise, I mean, he's as historically great as it gets. I mean, is it quite like what Lomachenko did to boxing, where it's like there's just this whole new style and way to look at it? It might be the MMA version of that, what the guys at CKB have done.
Yes, I mean, he doesn't use, obviously he's got a different style than Lomachenko, and it's a different sport, so there's a lot of differences. So he's not like as angular in that way, although he is pretty fucking angular. But it's more than that. Again, I go back to it, the scrambling of the brains. I'm not going to fight you head on. I'm going to leave you so confused, you're just going to be open all the time. It's death by 1,000 cuts. And dude, I'm going to be very clear about this. When you're defending a title at the highest level, yeah, okay, some of these guys have, better skill sets than others. Dude, Max Holloway might be hittable, but it wasn't just that he got hit. Max Holloway could barely find him. He could barely find him, and he was standing right in front of him, basically, in a sort of a general way of putting it, for 25 minutes. It's fucking remarkable what he can do, and I just think there should be a lot more praise for his striking abilities, and there is already a lot, but he already has, but people like him are going to change MMA. MMA will be different by virtue of what they did during their time here, and you can't say that about a lot of fighters.
Well said, Luke. Very
All right.
Well said.
Your number 1 choice, my friend. Who you got? Who's your number 1 favorite striker to watch right now?
Okay, I really challenged myself with this answer because in some ways, although not exclusive, this could be like asking who's your favorite fighter to watch. Is the one I'm going to reveal right now, do I mention him among my favorite fighters? Not normally, but I really wanted to ask myself, like, who's the guy, whether you're killing time and you go on UFC Fight Pass and you just want to be entertained, or when you hear his next fight, you get, oh, God, I want to see that. It's easy for an all-action fighter to make this number 1 spot just for being all-action alone. And there is probably no better all-action fighter right now in my current UFC fandom, along with what we do journalistically, than the highlight. How about that for the perfect nickname, Justin Gaethje? If it was only big slugger, take big damage, and make amazingly aggressively fun all fight of the year fights, again, he could still populate this number 1, and no one's gonna complain. But that evolution, again with Trevor Whitman, although it's now failed at the title level twice, I get that, but that evolution to going pound for pound. I mean, he was, there's questions. Don't forget, there's questions. A lot of questions when he came over from World Series of Fighting. Can you do that on this level? Can you, and there were a lot of people saying, watch, he's going to make crazy, insane fights. That's all he was committed to. But to make that adjustment to now the title / I actually had him in my top 10 pound for pound, it's because he was able to tone down the violence just enough to craft and disguise it better. But he still threw with everything he had in creative, aggressive ways that not only are you there for the carnage, absolutely, but the craft is dynamic. And it wasn't enough to overcome the top of the division, as we found that he's not a complete fighter on the same level across the board by any means. But he'll die knowing he was maybe one kick away from putting the greatest fighter of his time in peril. And I'll know, Luke, that when it comes down to it at the end of the day, yeah, I guess I am. I'm a Justin Gaethje super fan, just like all the rest of you, because he frickin' delivers. And what he's done with his tools to craft them in this second chapter, damn. I mean, I could have put Michael Chandler here. I could have put anybody that entertains me on that level. But I also love the highlights craft. And that's why he's my number one. He's fighting. Don't hold my calls, okay, Luke? Hold my calls.
Yeah,
all right?
he's pretty hard to beat. Justin Gaethje is, and obviously, I don't know. People kind of think of him as like he has the wrestling background. Not that he's a wrestler, but he's the anti-wrestler. But they think of him just as entertainment. They think of him just as like brawler. But dude, the way the performance he turned in against Tony Ferguson to me was, not just devastating, but epic. But even before that, like the leg kicks in short range that he throws, like where he can put a hand on your shoulder and then he'll leg kick you right there. It's innovative, devastating stuff. And it's also a kill or be killed style. So I love that. I love the guys who bring a little bit of smarts, a little bit of, they definitely work on their craft. But then at the end of the day, I'm going to marry that with the most blood and guts attitude you've ever fucking seen. That's Justin Gaethje. And that's why people love him. No doubt about it.
Hell yeah.
All right. I'm going to go for a very different direction. I think most folks who know me probably know what I'm going to say, which given his last performance, people didn't like it. I'm going to get shit for it, but I really don't give a fuck because I think his body of work is just beyond remarkable. My number one choice is very easy. Israel Adesanya is my number one striker to watch right now. And I understand everyone out there is going to be like, I didn't like his last performance. He's boring. Listen, this is just my list. As we say about our rifles in the Marine Corps, there are many like them. This one is mine. I'm not telling you what you have to have on your list, but for me, yeah, was his last performance the most thrilling I've seen? No, it was not. Pretty far from it. But in the total body of work, no one has shown me more about the science of striking than him. He has been, if you want to really understand MMA striking, again, who is changing it, who's at the front of it, why things work, why things don't, and how effective it can be. Undefeated at middleweight, multiple contenders now getting multiple chances, and they still can't do shit to him. This is the guy. This is the king to me. And a point to be made here, obviously, Kamaru was winning the fight against Leon, but you can see that in short windows, he can still be hit, right? He got finished off. Dude, this guy... Izzy, whatever you want to say about the lack of offensive urgency at times in the later chapter of his career at this point, fine, make your argument. But they still can't lay a fucking glove on him. Defensively sound, his body of work offensively is remarkable. And I have gotten more joy, more information, more insight, just more clarity about what is happening in MMA striking by watching him than virtually anybody else. I couldn't imagine another choice. And by the way, I want to make a point. There's a lot of other guys you could have put on this list, like Charles Oliveira, Jorge Masvidal, Wonder Boy, whatever. Make your list. Let us know what we missed. But for me and for what I'm looking for and the kinds of things that matter to me, I could not imagine putting anyone else at number one right now except Izzy. He's my top choice.
You said the things that matter to you and the kind of things you like. That's why I had two women in my top 7, Luke, okay? All right, at the end of the day. No, look, here, yeah, this is a no-brainer. Even for my list, he should have shown up somewhere, and he's right there on the outside looking in. I've always loved and respected his game, whether, like you said, he's Whether it fits your entertainment palette for that moment, for him, it's not about that. And the fact that it's not is probably going to allow him to go even further than trying to please everybody with performances like I was lucky enough to be ringside for there, cage side in the Kelvin Gastelum one. But, Luke, what I love about, sitting in the 8th row on Delta and throwing on UFC Fight Pass and going, oh, who am I going to watch tonight? They always start the fight when you click on demand there with the video package that was leading in the broadcast. So it's always Joe Rogan, and it's always at his most, like, not obnoxious, but like salesman, extra level. You'll be like, Robbie Lawler, still to this day, one of the most dangerous and entertaining strikers who's ever stepped foot on planet Earth. And you're like, well, yeah, I mean, through 2016, sure, Joe, but it's like, it's 2022 now. But when he opens those and is like, Adesanya might be the most dynamic and creative striker this sport has ever seen, he's actually right. So, number one with a bullet. Watching this guy ply that craft and knowing what he is capable of, by the way, if you press him and make him bring that out of him, the times that's happened, it's been fun to watch. I'd love a redo on that Romero fight. I wish that never happened, Luke, but, you can't be perfect. Not all the paintings can be perfect. We've seen that so far on my easel, Luke, okay?
I understand.